Over the years, the Rich Dad Radio Show has sparked powerful conversations, challenged conventional wisdom, and revealed the truths about money most people never hear. In this special compilation, we've pulled together some of the most eye-opening, controversial, and unforgettable moments so you can revisit the lessons that continue to change lives. Get ready for the best of Rich Dad Radio.
Hello, Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Radio Show. I'm broadcasting from beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona, where it's either heaven or hell. And right now it's heaven. It'll soon be hot as hell. But anyway, our guest today is Natalie Brunell. She's the author of the book called Bitcoin is for Everyone. And the reason I wanted Natalie on board here is I'm the old guy. You know, I'm up there with Warren Buffett and Peter Schiff and myself. And Buffett and Schiff, they talk badly about Bitcoin. And I think that's really stupid personally. I'll say that publicly. Why would you be against Bitcoin? But they have to talk their book, you know. So Peter Schiff sells gold, so he has to talk his book against Bitcoin. And Buffett's just an old guy. He's 90-something years old. And I think I have more gold than Schiff. I mean, I actually start gold mines. So this is a gold mine I took public. And I love gold. I love silver. I love Bitcoin. I love Ethereum. I just don't like the Federal Reserve Bank. And America today is the biggest debtor nation in world history. And when I was born in the 40s, we're the richest country in the world. But because of the Federal Reserve Bank, and I asked people to study this book here, it's called The Creature from Jekyll Island. As you can see, I was a real stupid kid in school, but I do study. And The Creature from Jekyll Island is about the Federal Reserve Bank, which was 1913 or something like that. And The Creature from Jekyll Island also brought on board, the Federal Reserve Bank also brought on the Internal Revenue Service, taxation. And America was founded as a tax-free nation in 1773. As you know, it was called the Boston Tea Party. And we revolted against taxes. And if you study the Communist Manifesto, Karl Marx, who was an intellectual, said that the object of communism was the abolition of private property. Labor unions, workers of the world unite, and taxation. And what Marx said was that taxation was essential for the spread of communism. So when the Federal Reserve Bank was kicked in, the creature from Jekyll Island, it was communism taking over America. That's how I see it. I'm a U.S. Marine. I went to military school. I fought against communism in Vietnam twice. So I'm very much anti-communist. I just don't understand why guys like Schiff and Buffett would have to downplay Bitcoin, because the real enemy isn't Bitcoin. The real enemy is the Federal Reserve Bank and our Treasury that prints fake money. And now America is the biggest debtor nation in world history. That's the problem. So our guest today is Natalie Brunell. She's infamous for Bitcoin, and I love what you're doing, Natalie, and I have lots of Bitcoin. I've made millions off of it. I got started real late, though. I got started at 6,000, and so I'm still doing pretty good. I'm still in the money out there. So anyway, welcome to the show, Natalie.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This is quite an honor. You did very well on Bitcoin, and it just goes to show you how open-minded you have been, because I think for so many people, the ego gets in the way. They heard about Bitcoin. They could have bought it, much cheaper. And it does take a little bit of unlearning what you think you know, especially about the financial system, which you've done such a great job throughout the years educating the public on.
The enemy is the Fed and the U.S. Mm-hmm. And we have a president today. I wrote 2 books with him, named Donald Trump. He and his sons, who are friends of mine, Don Jr. and Eric. They're very pro-Bitcoin. And so every time Schiff gets on television, Schiff's one of the smartest guys I know. I mean, I've never debated with him because it'd be a waste of my time. He's very smart. But he just hates Bitcoin, and so does Buffett. And if they treated it like any commodity trade, they'd be okay. I made millions. I bought it. I wish I bought it at $6. I bought it at 6,000, but I'm still in the money. So anyway, so Natalie, how'd you get into Bitcoin?
Sure. So for me, it was actually a really interesting journey that I think really has to date back to my humble beginnings. I was raised in a communist country, or I was born into one. My parents were raised in Poland. And so they dreamt of coming to the United States for the American dream and the economic opportunity here. So they left when I was very young. We were able to come here, move to the Chicago area, and they started over. They learned the language. They asked for nothing. They expected nothing from the government. They just wanted a chance. And really, it was a self-sacrifice so that their children would have a better life. So I grew up watching them work really, really hard. And I went off to college, and the great financial crisis hit. And just before I had gone to college, they were finally able to achieve a modest version of the American dream, purchase a small townhouse outside of the Chicago. And then the great financial crisis hit, and they lost everything, and they had to file for bankruptcy. And so I graduated into that recession in '09 thinking, well, this system is very unfair and broken. All the bankers are getting bailed out, and people like my family are losing their home that they worked so hard for, played by all the rules. And that's when I knew something was wrong. I could recognize that there was a problem. And I went out into the world as a reporter to pursue a career in journalism. And I was reporting on so many of these issues and symptoms that were ultimately rooted in this broken financial system, but I didn't know it at the time. So I was reporting on the increasing cost of living and the growing fragmentation, the political polarization, and people just feeling so frustrated that they're working harder than ever, but they're not able to afford what a generation or two ago was much easier. And as you've pointed out in your writings, they don't teach you in school that you need to accumulate assets because the world is really built on inflation and a system of printing money. So I learned about Bitcoin in 2017 when it was about 3,000 a coin. And like so many people, I initially dismissed it. I thought, well, it's digital. It could be hacked. I'm going to lose all my money. But I went on a years-long journey of really studying the financial system to come to the conclusion that Bitcoin is the best form of money that has ever existed. The hardest form of money. It improves on the properties of gold. And I think it will be the base layer for our economy going forward as the base layer of capital that we can build on to have a more fair system that offers opportunity to more people.
Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki. Our guest today, Michael Mauceli. He's REI Energy. For full disclosure, I've been investing with Michael for about 25 years in oil. And Tom Wheelwright, he's the author of Tax-Free Wealth. He's my accountant. And the reason I like inviting with Michael is I make a lot of money and pay very little in taxes. Now, you can't do that with a 401k, and neither should you. So anyway, it's an interesting time in oil. And again, I went to school for oil. I drove tankers for Standard Oil of California. So I like the oil business. So, Michael, what else is going on with, you think, this bombing of Venezuela? We're going to take Venezuela. How's it affecting the oil business in America?
Well, I don't think it's had much effect so far on prices. Obviously, it's going to take quite a while to get Venezuela back to producing the amount of production they did 10 or 20 years ago. As far as that. Now, Venezuela was one of the founding members of OPEC. So they are an OPEC, country. So I'm sure that once that production starts flowing again, there will be restrictions on how much oil and gas each of these members can produce. So I don't really see it having that big of effect, on the prices of oil. We of course here in the United States, we drill shale wells, and shale wells are probably the most expensive oil to export. Our crude, you have to have $50 to $60 a barrel. So if crude was to drop, say, in the 40s for a while due to some of these reasons that by bringing more crude onto the market, you would definitely see drilling slow down here in the United States as far as on that. So it's kind of a give and take type situation. We have a lot of oil reserves here in the United States. Of course, we don't have 300 billion barrels of reserves in the ground, but our oil is more expensive to drill and it is more expensive to get out. So I don't really see it have that much effect on prices going forward.
Okay. Any comments on that, Tom?
Yeah, this is fascinating to me because it seems to me like it gives the U.S. an opportunity to control the production a little bit and actually have a voice in OPEC, which we have not had much of a voice in OPEC outside of Saudi Arabia. And of course, the price of oil is a big part of the investment in oil, right? Because you can't control the price of oil. A little easier to control, say, rents on a place you're renting. It's much harder to control the price of oil. So that is one of the challenges with oil, and which is why the government gives us such big tax incentives for oil. Now, here's another interesting thing. You get incentives for investing in domestic oil, but you don't get tax incentives for investing in foreign oil. So, the average investor in the U.S. is not going to be investing in Venezuela. That's going to be the big guys like Chevron, et cetera, Standard Oil, et cetera, that invest in Venezuela. They're the ones with the drilling platforms down there. The people who invest here are going to be there are a lot of smaller investors, really doctors, lawyers, business owners, employees. Here's one of the great things about oil is that you can be an employee and invest in oil and get the deduction immediately, whereas it's very hard to do that in real estate. So this is a huge advantage that oil has over real estate, is that it's not a passive investment, so you don't have to have passive income to offset. You can have ordinary income and offset even your wage income up to a limit. But for most investors, it's a plenty high limit that it's not going to affect them. So I think that's a huge advantage of domestic drilling in the United States.
So, Michael, any words of caution for people looking to invest with guys like you?
Well, there's always risk. There's risk in every type of investment. So, if you can't afford to lose the amount you invest, then I would say, you need to look at more of a conservative type investment.
So one of the things I'm looking at right now I was talking to Mike Mauceli and Tom about this, with AI coming on board, that sucks up a lot of energy.
Yep.
Right.
It does.
Michael, are you guys looking at that? Because right now I'm looking at an investment for energy outside of oil. Or Tom, any comments on that?
Well, there's obviously different forms of energy. There's, I think that, what eventually impact more of the prices. I mean, we all know right now, wind and solar, they're investments. They're not, they don't account for a large amount of the energy that's produced here in the United States just simply because of the cost. I think going forward in the future, you're going to see a lot more small nuclear reactors. You're going to see more nuclear energy that, provided that we continue on with the administration we have, and we don't go back to the what the last administration was trying to do. But I think in the future you'll see more electricity being produced through nuclear, just simply because it's a cleaner electricity. And of course our military's been running the battleships off of it for 20 or 30 years. So I think that technology will come on shore eventually.
Well, on top of that, Mike, it seems like we've got a lot of opportunity for natural gas.
Yeah.
You were mentioning that your oil fields in Texas are 60% natural gas, where it seems to me like until we get the small nuclear plants, which is still quite a ways away, probably, I'm guessing probably 10 years away before we get those small nuclear plants easily. During that time, aren't we going to see more natural gas production and producing a lot of that energy for those big AI facilities? Let's call them the data centers. Aren't we going to see that coming through natural gas?
Yeah, certainly. In fact, we have, probably more natural gas reserves here in the United States than anywhere in the world. And, our biggest problem that we have in this country is just getting the gas to market. If you look at some areas out in West Texas, out in the Permian Basin, I mean, they actually have to pay to get rid of their gas. They don't have the pipelines that can move the gas to the Gulf Coast or where it needs to go. So a lot of times, it'll cost them $2 or $3 a barrel. I mean, $2 or $3 an MCF just to get rid of the natural gas.
So let's say, how do I say this? If I make $100,000 with Michael, Tom, gross, how much in tax do I pay?
Well, you're going to pay tax on only 85% of that. So you'll pay tax on $85,000. But the reality is you can keep investing with Michael and never pay tax. So there's no reason, somebody who's an active investor like you are, Robert, somebody who's constantly reinvesting, there's no reason to be paying tax because the money you put in, you get the tax benefit to offset the income you're taking out. So it's just, this is why the rich keep getting richer, because the rich keep investing, they keep getting the tax benefits and then they get the cash flow, but it's non-taxable cash flow because of all the tax benefits they're getting from investing.
When stocks and gold go up together, that's not good news. Normally they move in opposite directions. Stocks rise on confidence, gold rises on fear. They're not supposed to break records at the same time, but right now they are. This has only happened twice before, in 1999 before the tech crash, and in 2007 before the financial crisis. Gold doesn't rise because it's popular, it rises because big players see trouble coming. Central banks are buying gold aggressively. Gold is not a trade, it's a hedge against currency risk. When protection assets rise alongside risk assets, the system is sending a warning. Gold doesn't go up, paper money goes down. If you want to understand why real assets are rising and how to own gold and silver inside your IRA or 401k, get the free Rich Dad Wealth Defense Guide from my friends at Priority Gold. Call 866-703-9895 right now. That's 866-703-9895 for your free Rich Dad Wealth Defense Guide. Or open a text, type the word guide, and send it to 24999. Again, that's guide to 24999. This is not the time to guess. It's a time to position. Call 866-703-9895 or text guide to 24999 now to get your free Rich Dad Wealth Defense Guide.
Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show. My special guest today has been a long-time friend, over 30 years now, Ken McElroy. He's made me a very rich man. But Kenny talks about his aha moment was that he's in college, he's property management. He collects all the rent, he manages the property, and this investor pulls up, and Kenny gives the cash to the investor. And that was the lights went on, so Kenny switched sides of the table. And now I'm one of those investors that comes up to Kenny, and he makes a lot of people very, very rich with zero of their own money in the deal. He's 100% debt. Now, don't try this at home unless you're willing to practice, because debt can kill you one way or the other. And the reason I want to bring Kenny up right now is this. Everybody keeps talking about what's the Fed doing? I'm going to throw you a cold, bro. What's interest rates? All this stuff, it's important. But when people keep talking about the Fed, how much does that affect your thinking? The Federal Reserve Bank, should I say?
Well, I first of all, you got to watch that stuff. Those are indicators for sure. But I think for a lot of people, they're just a distraction from actually getting busy. Right. You know what I mean? Like it's important, but the Fed doesn't, everything that they do takes a year to a year and a half to 2 years to even hit the economy, like everything, like an interest rate increase or, so they're a slow moving animal. The stock market definitely reacts and, those kinds of things, obviously based on some decisions, but real estate it's a slow moving animal and, a quarter point here, quarter point there. I'm not going to say it's not important, but I don't understand why there's so much focus on it. It's, if you focus on cash flow, if the Fed's lowering the federal funds rate and interest rates are going down and the 10 years going down and all that stuff, then you just refinance on the way down. It's a slow process. If you fix your rate and the rates go up, you're hedged. You're good, but you just make sure it cash flows every single time, so you don't have to worry about the Fed. So the Fed is something that you got to watch, but it's no different than the way I watch a tenant or a vendor or anything. Like it's just one thing.
Well, the way I look at it is the Fed is like the cost of the money because we're
Yep.
using 100% debt. And the reason I mentioned my first property, this is back in 74, a piece of one-bedroom apartment in Maui. I think it was $18,000 was the total price. I needed 10% down. Now I could have put $1,800 down and got the property, but I used my credit card. So I maxed out my credit card and I'm paying about 30% interest on that credit card and it's still cash flowed. So all it is the price of the money. It's like the price of electricity, the price of water, the price of sewage and all this. It's just an expense out there, but you have to pay attention to it. So Kenny, when you one thing more you talked to me about this is called deal flow. How many deals are you looking at as a everyday practice?
Well, we have an investment committee with 10 people that meet every week. And there's a tremendous amount of work that's done before that meeting. So in fact, right now during this filming, there's a pre-investment committee meeting that I'm not on to review deal flow. So to answer your question, there's hundreds of deals right now we're looking at, probably 20 seriously, underwriting most of those to see if they make any sense at all. And then it's typical for an investment committee to look at 1 to 3 a week, and we'll make an offer on one or two a week, and probably get 0. There's a whole process of looking at the deals, getting information from the brokers, underwriting it, seeing if it cash flows, and then most of those don't even make, they're on the cutting room floor, I guess is a great analogy. And then the ones that actually come, they usually have to have some kind of story, some kind of upside, some kind of cash flow. Like I'll give you an example. We're looking at a deal right now that's a 2025 build. And we made an offer for $127,000 a unit,
Wow.
brand new construction. And which is, maybe some people know what that means. That's $100,000 discount that the person that built it per unit. And it's 250 units. So you can imagine it's like a $25 million discount. Now I might get it. We might not get it, but those are the kinds of ones. They have a great story. It's not highly occupied yet, so we can fix the management. And we're looking at stuff like that a lot, Robert. Last week, we made an offer on 6 properties, 1,410 units that were lender owned. So every week, there's something new.
Yeah. The reason I say that, the average person, they go to school to get a job, they have a 401k, and they don't even look at the deal. They just go to the financial planner just puts money in their 401k. They learn nothing. I think that's the biggest crime. With real estate, high risk, but you have to learn a lot to be successful. With a 401k, it's just hit or miss. Let's say you start investing a 401k at 25, and hopefully at 65 you have money left. But there's no guarantee of it. So the reason Kenny and I we talk all over the world, we teach, we encourage people to go out there and learn to put your own deals together. And you might look at, I remember when I was first looking for my first property in Honolulu after the real estate course, and I wasn't successful. And my rich dad said to me, the reason is you haven't looked at enough deals. It was like the lights going on. I said, my God. He says, you got to step up what Kenny calls deal flow. Look, talk, invest. People look at one, they quit, they go home, there's nothing out there. Oh, the Fed said this, and there's nothing out there. And all the Fed is the cost of your money. It's like the cost of your water, your electricity. That's all it is. But it's important. So what would you encourage we call him the FNG, the FNU guy, to do? How should they get started?
Well, I think that the reason that you wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad, the reason that you created the Rich Dad company, and the reason I teach and the reason I do books is is what is that the way the system works is that Wall Street reaches in everyone's pocket and uses your money anyway. Like
Yep.
they make you put it into a bank, you put it into a pension, you put it into an insurance company, you put it into a retirement account. Those are all people making money off of what I would call Main Street. And so when you wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad, what you did is you woke up Main Street. You gave people you enlightened them and said, wow, I guess I do have options rather than turn my money over. And I think, that's what drives me is, if you're just going to work your butt off and turn your money over and not understand why or how, and then hope, that's why you wrote the book, Who Stole My Pension? Like, people are doing this. It's a travesty. Now, the interesting thing is that they are in control of their future. They are making choices themselves. If people just understood that the right thing to do is actually use Wall Street, use it. It's like a tool in your tool belt. Like, be Main Street, but use Wall Street, because otherwise you're getting used by Wall Street. You're either the consumer or the producer. And so, that's what drives me, Robert, is we're helping people understand that, do your own thing, make your own money.
Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki for Set Radio Show. Our guests today, Glenn and Eric Meter. We're talking about Big Brother, the advancement of, let's say, AI for a general term, and surveillance. So we're talking about Big Brother and surveillance. You guys have a company, solutions for it. What can a person do to protect themselves from Big Brother?
So the first thing is awareness. You have to become aware of what the issue is. You have to be aware of the threats that face you online. And so we talk about Big Brother, but it's big tech, and then there's hackers and scammers, and they all want the same thing. They all want your data. And then they take your data and they weaponize your data against you. So you have to really figure out how to not give them your data. And really, there's things that you can learn, there's skills that you can do, but there's mindset things, there's tools that you can use, all of that stuff. And I'll give you an example here. This might be a little bit more advanced, but I think it's very important that you change the computer that you use, because computers, so Windows now has Copilot on it. Copilot is built-in AI on your computer. It takes a screenshot every second, and the AI that lives on your computer analyzes that, and it's doing that for a purpose, and it's doing that to learn about you. And this is part of this whole thing that they're doing. Apple does this, Windows does this, and so Linux. I mean, I think it's very important that this is not maybe the first step, but eventually people should move over to Linux. And there's some very good, Linux is a different operating system, but it's really good. Nowadays, it's very good. And there's specific versions of Linux that we recommend. But that is a way to stop the surveillance on you that's happening every second.
So one last, that's far beyond my pay grade in Linux and all that stuff.
Okay.
I barely turn on my cell phone. But that's the one thing I noticed when I go into a retail outlet. They say, "May I have your phone number?"
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that part of it too?
Yeah, absolutely.
What
So
would you
I
say?
never give them my phone number. I always do like my area code and then 8675309 or just 5555555 or something like that. But yeah, you're right. You don't want to give them your phone number.
Yeah, what they're trying to buy is your purchasing patterns. I mean, that's data that they want to know. And I think it was Kroger, right? I mean, Kroger made a ridiculous amount of money on the data. I mean, it's not, I think it was like over 10% of like all their profit. I don't know exactly on the number.
$700 million is what Kroger makes on selling your data.
Wow. Yeah.
So I have a bad habit as I shop online. Does that open me up again?
Yeah. I mean, so there's two threats to that. I mean, one, like what we just said with Kroger, is they want to collect your data. But then the other side is hackers and scammers and thieves. And so what people make the mistake of is they reuse their password. They use their real credit or debit card. They use their email address for everything. And then basically, if one of those get compromised, all of them are compromised. So what we do personally is we have a service that creates a fake email address for everyone that we use, and it actually forwards it to our email address. We use burner debit cards for every transaction. It's actually super easy once you use the software, and basically we have no threat vector because we've obfuscated like all of the data. If I purchase something, it just says, Will Smith and a different card number than mine and a different email address. So I don't have any threat really.
But if we can keep it simple, let's just keep it simple right now. So the first thing you should do is maybe use the Brave browser instead of Chrome or instead of Safari, something like that. Don't use Google.com, use the Brave search engine. Those are two things that I think are very good. De-Google yourself. Just learn how to get away from Google. I think that would be a very big step too.
Yeah. And one of the most simple things you can do is just have a webcam cover. And there's also another thing called a microphone blocker where it blocks the microphone from spying on you. But low tech and hardware solutions like, a webcam cover that stops the camera from working, that's fantastic because, you can't hack a webcam cover off.
So what service do you guys provide? Because here I am going, okay, so if that stops me from being an online shopper, and then I go to the retail outlet, they get my credit card there anyway. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
We're wide open.
Yeah.
And so it's to say, don't use your credit card, that's kind of ridiculous. Or don't give you, there's only so much you can do on that side. So what service do you guys provide that, on how they get in touch with you, should I say?
So we teach people how to do it in bite-sized steps. I mean, the biggest problem that people make is they try to jump into the deep end. They want to get a Linux computer or a phone. They want to do it all at once, and it's not right. I mean, you want to take baby steps. You want to take bite-sized pieces, and then you can go as far as you want. I don't believe in like elitism with privacy. There's a lot of people that say, "Oh, you have to do everything or it's worthless." The key is you figure out your threat model, whatever you want to do, and then take the steps needed. And so that's what we help with. Go ahead.
We have a
How do
website.
they get in touch with Glenn and Eric Meter? How do they get in touch with you guys? How do they access
privacyacademy.com.
Yeah.
privacyacademy.com?
Yes.
And what do you get for that?
We have a series. It's all about education. So we have a series of courses, how to do this, just lessons. We have recorded lessons. We have live lessons, and we can work with you one-on-one, but we can help you learn how to protect yourself from online hackers, thieves, and scammers, big tech and big brother. All three of them are very important to protect yourself against, and that's what we show you how to do.
How much does that cost?
The core program, well, we've got different programs, but $49 a month is really the core program.
$49 a month, and does it protect you, or what does it do?
It gives you access to the training that allows you to protect yourself. Yeah.
The training, but it doesn't protect you without the training.
Well, the first thing you need to know is you need to know how to think about this. And there are just certain things that you need to do and ways to think and understand how to stop the data flow.
Yeah.
So that's what it's really to understand the problem.
Yeah. And the solution. We teach you how to use the software. Like if you do want to use a Linux computer, we'll show you how to load it onto your own device, transition over to it. So the problem and then also the solution aspect of it.
That was Hackers Academy again? Well, Privacy Academy.
Privacy Academy, yeah. Privacyacademy.com.
Yeah, don't go to Hackers Academy.
Everybody signed up for that one, wouldn't they?
Yep.
Anyway, it's such a brave new world we live in. And Big Brother is watching. What you're saying is disturbing.
Yep.
Especially since, you're vulnerable everywhere. And we come back, we'll have a final word from Rich Dad. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Once again, thank you to Eric and Glenn Meter of Privacy Academy. I think their recommendation is solid. Understand the problem first before you do anything. So any final words there? Anything else you would like to advise people, what they should know, what you see coming, and what the threats are?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the threat is that everything is becoming centralized. And so I define a smart device as the ability to surveil you and then the ability to control you. And a good way to look at that is like, if you look at a car from the 80s, it's very simple. You know, you turn the ignition, the car turns on, you turn the wheels turn. But now it's a computer on wheels. So what does that mean? It can be controlled like a computer can. And so, they can limit how far you drive. They can limit how fast you drive. They can limit everything because it is a smart device. And what's happening is all of these data points are centralizing. And that means all the centralized power is going to a small group of people. So right now we're seeing an extreme centralization of power. And basically it's all going to say that privacy is really being ignored right now, but I think it is the biggest issue to liberty. I think it's the backbone to what's creating and could create the most powerful collectivist society ever. And if you care about your personal liberty, I really urge you to learn about the dangers and opt out of that awful future.
This podcast is a presentation of Rich Dad Media Network.